Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Ciara from Ciara T Designs, and today I have a set of cards that were very inspired by a Tim Holtz video he did when he announced the watercolor pencils. So let's jump right in, and I'll make sure to link that video if you haven't seen it so you can go and check it out. So I'm going to create the backgrounds, and to do that I used a piece of watercolor cardstock. This is the Distress watercolor cardstock, and a Distress Oxide ink. It was, I just forgot, and I even showed you the color. Iced Spruce. There we go. I'm going to use Iced Spruce for this. And you could absolutely use any color you want to in the line, but I kind of wanted a very vintage aged feel. So this is kind of the color that I chose to do. And I have a replacement mat right there. And you can see that I obviously have two of them on my glass mat. The one that I'm actually using to do the ink smooshing on the background, and then the one that I have that just always sits there and kind of deflects the light so that you guys aren't beamed in the eye by my lights, but you don't need to, obviously, but I have two just in case. So I like to use this one for my actual backgrounds. So you can see that I'm only going to use Iced Spruce, and I'm going to create some layers. So my first one was just water, and it kind of just smooshed across the background. And then now we're going to add the texture. So I just keep kind of adding drops and stuff to the background just to create extra interest. There's no right or wrong way to do this, honestly, and you could do it with more than one color if you wanted to. I'm choosing to only use the one color, mostly because I think it'll look really neat and because it's less likely to draw your eye away from the focal images. So it's kind of my thought process there. And I do dry between the layers so that they don't blend more. I want that definition in the background. And then I did splash a little water on as well, just to add some extra texture. I really like texture in my backgrounds. I think that it's a lot of fun and it kind of gives your eye something really fun to focus on. I am going to make a mistake in this card. Not a big deal. I'll show you how I fix it. But I actually had to walk away from these cards because I was so bummed that I didn't stamp properly. But that's okay. We all, misjudge things once in a while. I am human. So I did cut my panel in half. So this was a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of Distress watercolor cardstock. And then I just cut that in half. And then I had these leftover pieces of, this is Neenah Desert Storm cardstock, which is just a craft cardstock. And I decided to use them as the background. I'm not 100% sure on the measurements, honestly, because after I trimmed them down here, I didn't measure them. I'm pretty bad for not really measuring stuff. I had these two pieces set aside because they were left over from something else. So I just chose to use them as the backgrounds. And I used my Deckled edge trimmer. My Deckled edge trimmer is a little bit finicky every once in a while, and it doesn't like to cut through some things, and then it'll work perfectly fine. So I don't know if it's just me or some of the fibers of paper were stuck. I don't know quite what happened there, but you saw me struggle a little bit on that one area. And honestly, it doesn't really bother me at all. I kind of think that it adds to the texture when it does that. So I think it looks kind of neat. But if that irritates you, there's different options for sure. And then I'm going to bring in the Botanical Collage stamp set. It's Botanic Collage stamp set. I want to call it Botanical. And I just used two of the images out of that. And I'm going to stamp them on top of that watercolored smooshed background with some black soot Archival ink. My ink cube is a bit dry, so it didn't stamp greatly, but it gave me enough of an impression that I could kind of see what I was going for, and I knew that I was going to stamp them again. So I am going to leave them in the Misti here, and we're going to stamp them again, and that's where I'm going to make my mistake. So the watercolor pencil video that Tim Holtz did when he announced his pencils had this really cool demo in it. And this is, I'm like gonna redo his version, just make some cards out of them. So it was just really neat. And I hope you guys will go and check it out. It is a bit of a longer video, but honestly, he gives you so much information and knowledge that if you love his products, his videos are always worth it. And you can pause them and go back if you can't watch them in a sitting, which is totally understandable. I think that he just has so much information to give on his products that I think that they're totally worth a watch. So I will make sure to link his video so you can go and check it out. But I have set number 3 of the watercolor pencils here. Sadly, it was the only set I could get my hands on at the time, and I really wanted to play with them. So I kind of, this set doesn't have as many colors as I'm generally drawn to. It kind of has a lot of blues and some greens and not much of the brighter colors that I tend towards. Set 1 and 2 have more of those because it has like, see those preserves, and it has the purples and the bright pinks and in those colors, which is generally the more I gravitate towards. But that doesn't mean I don't love this palette. It's just not quite my normal palette. So you see that I kind of just put some color down, and then I brought in a water brush and blended it out a bit, and you'll see me wiping it off on my mat there, just because when I change colors I don't want them to make brown, because I do have yellow, orange, and blue here, and blue and orange will make brown if you're not careful. So I kind of just went back and forth until I was happy with the color that I have down. And I'm only going to show you this one, but I did the flowers the exact same with that exact same set. I only have set number 3. So they're the exact same. I think I just, for that one, I used Tattered Rose is the pink in there. And I think I used Wilted Honey. Is it Wilted Honey? Wild Honey, sorry. Wild Honey. And those are the 2 colors that I predominantly used on the flower. So there's no, like any color palette you want to do can work perfectly for this. But that is kind of the colors that I stuck with. And then the greens I used, I think there was like Rusted Wilderness and Crushed Olive, I think were the 2 greens in that set. So that's kind of how I colored them. And then you saw me go over them with my glitter pen just to add some shimmer and shine, because why not? And then here I really wanted to vintage up my craft cardstock. So I brought in Vintage Photo, which is kind of my preferred brown, and just went around those deckled edges to add a little bit more of a worn look. And then I really had to add some splatter. Like, this card is kind of like an ode to a lot of the really cool techniques that I've watched Tim Holtz do over several demo videos. You guys know, if you're a regular on my channel, how much I think that Tim Holtz is amazing and his products are like outstanding. So none of this is really a surprise to you. But I just kind of wanted to create a more vintage-esque aesthetic to excuse me, my regular kind of stuff that I would generally create, because I do tend towards very vibrant colors and very like pinks and purples, those kind of colors. So I thought that this would be a lot of fun. So here is where I'm going to make a mistake. The flower piece of cardstock is not lined up perfectly. The butterfly one is. That one turned out perfect, but the flower one is not. So I'm gonna kind of take a little bit of the ink off here, and then I'm gonna kind of set it aside. I had to walk away from this because I was unsure how to create a card with this being the focal image and having it not turn out very well. But we're going to do a few things that kind of help detract your eye from it a little bit. So first thing is splatter. I think splatter is one of the best things you can do just to create some texture and different interest. So I splattered on some Picket Fence Distress Paint just randomly across that panel. And then I'm going to create my sentiment. So I brought in a sentiment from the Noteworthy stamp set. And it's just Be Authentic. And I thought that really fit with these cards because they're not perfect. And I don't think that they need to be. I don't strive for perfection when I create. I more strive to just create something that makes me happy, or that I learned from, or that I think that someone would really enjoy receiving. So I don't aim for perfection. I don't think it's possible, and I think that it's more important to make than it is to worry about being perfect. So it's kind of my thought process there. And this is just a scrap piece of that same cardstock that I had sitting aside. And I'm going to trim out the sentiments to be like little labels with this distress trimmer, just because I wanted that same kind of tattered effect, because I think that that's a kind of a neat look for this. And I love how it looks on craft. I think craft is one of the best papers to tatter, just because I think it looks cool. Or distress, decal, whatever you want to call it. You don't need the trimmer for this. There are dies and there are scissors and there are, rulers, and there are all sorts of things you can use. It's just that I find the trimmer the easiest for me because it doesn't matter what size I need it to be. It always works. And I do have a few issues. Sometimes it's really temperamental. It's rare, but it does happen every now and then, but still is like my second favorite trimmer to my straight cutter. So I think that it just adds a lot of fun texture. And then I did have to add a little bit of that Vintage Photo around both of the sentiments as well, just again to kind of tie it in to the background and make it really kind of go with what we're doing here. So for the first one, I am going to use my tiny attacher and I'm going to staple on the sentiment for this one. This is kind of what I thought I was going for when I was making these cards. Now I'm going to have to pivot a bit with the floral card because I needed it to be a little more distracting. So we're going to add a few different things to it to kind of create a different look. But this butterfly one was kind of the aim when I had these cards in mind. And I'm going to change up the flower one just a little bit. So I did adhere them down flat with some of my Nuvo Deluxe glue. You could add foam tape or something if you wanted to pop them up, give them a little more dimension. I didn't do that with this one, but you absolutely could. And then for my second card, we're going to kind of do a little bit of something different. I'm going to bring in some, I think it's just like a hemp thread. I'm honestly not even sure. I think it came in a Simon Says Stamp kit a while ago, and I've just had it sitting here. But I thought that it would really go well with how this card comes together. So I put down some 1/8 of an inch Scor-tape because I like to use that to hold anything like the strings or the threads or anything like that. And then I'm going to wrap it around. And sorry, I get a little out of frame there when I was trying to get it to line up. But I use that Scor-tape to kind of hold my thread as I'm wrapping it so I don't have to worry about it kind of popping off. And then I also have a heart embellishment. This is another Tim Holtz. I think it's called, I'm looking at my notes here to try to remember what it was called. It's just a heart adornment. There we go. And I'm going to attach that on with that piece of twine there just to kind of have an extra bit of something to catch your eye. So I thought that was kind of a really fun way to add an embellishment that would kind of just add a little interest to the card. And then of course I am going to add the sentiment. Now you could try to cover the flower, but honestly, I think that if you didn't see the butterfly cards side by side, you wouldn't necessarily notice. Like I showed my husband them when I had just finished them, and he didn't notice that I had kind of stamped it incorrectly. He just thought that they looked neat and then was kind of like, why are you upset? And I was like, well, don't you see that it's, it's like double stamped, like it's not stamped properly. And he's like, oh, I didn't even notice. So, we are our worst critic that way. And I don't think that this is a bad card. I don't think that, that double stamping made it ugly. I think that this was just a really good challenge for me to kind of look past something that was not perfect and find a way to still make something fun and beautiful out of it. And I think that I succeeded with that. You guys will have to let you know what you think. But I think that it turned out really pretty and it still got a beautiful card out of it. It just, comparatively to the butterfly, you can see that there was a bit of an error there. But honestly, after I walked away from it and came back, I don't think that it was bad. And I wouldn't have tossed it. If I hadn't made this card with it, I would have found a different way to use it. But I honestly think that this was the best thing for it. And it can just be a beautiful card in its own space that's not perfect. And that's 100% okay. There's no way to tell that that wasn't intentional at this point, other than, you guys know. But as a general rule, nobody would know. And then, of course, supervisor number 1, this is my little kitten. Her name is Mist. She has to supervise me putting on some little gems here. She's going to try to chase my wand, my embellishment wand here in a second. And then I kind of put my hand in the way and she got mad and left. So it was kind of funny, but she had to come and supervise and make sure that I was adhering my little gems properly. And I just added some the Cafe au Lait pearls by Studio Katia. And they're this really pretty kind of shimmery brown color. I think they're stunning and I think they really give a great vintage effect to a card. So I would love to know what you guys think of these cards. What do you think of the flower one? If you didn't see it with the butterfly one, would you be able to tell instantaneously that there was a mistake there? I'd love to know. So please let me know. I'd love your comments and your feedback. So that's what I have for you guys today. I hope you'll come back and check out my videos. I'm running my 12 weeks of Christmas series right now. Every Monday until Christmas will be a Christmas video. And it just started this week. So on Monday. So I will have that video linked if you want to go and check it out. And that's what I have for you guys. So I hope you'll leave me a like, leave me a comment, and consider subscribing. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.